fun.
Of the situation we're in now, right? Where do we get this world banking cartel, and how do they control the finances and the central banks of these countries? It actually takes us back to 1895, and this was an attack on the United States organized by London and by Morgan. And the goal was to force the U.S. Off the gold standard by buying up all the gold that was in the backing of the U.S. dollar.
In 1832, Andrew Jackson ran for a second term on the basis of regaining control of the economy from the Second Bank of America, which is under Rothschild control. Upon his election victory, Jackson began to make good on his promise, removing state deposits from the Second Bank of America and refusing to renew its charter. What followed, according to Hitchcock, was a high-stakes game, with the Rothschilds causing a depression and ordering a failed assassination attempt on Jackson. In fact, Jackson remarks to his vice president, Martin Van Buren, "The bank, Mr. Van Buren, is trying to kill me." Abraham Lincoln continued to undermine Rothschild interests in 1861 by printing debt-free money to fund the Civil War and continuing to argue for restraining the influence of the central bank.
So mostly what they do is hold summits.
I think that right now the question is, do we all work for central bankers? That's what I want to address to our guest tonight. Is this global governance at last? Is it one world, the central bankers in charge? Mr. LeCamp, do we work for the central bankers?
We know that.
Mr. LeCamp,
We do. This is free. We do. Look, markets are driven by policy now. They're not driven by market forces. They're driven by fiscal cliffs. They're driven by central bank proclamations. They're driven by false rumors coming out of the ECB.
Fiat currency that's continually watered down. They continue to water our currency down so the markets go up and we feel good about it.
We see the Russian stock market weakening. We see a new, this is a big one, the Russians have, of course, most of the assets that were taken from the oligarchs after Putin took the power, after Yeltsin gave them to the Jews. Putin took many of them back and gave them to the upper elite Jews, meaning Rothschild moved in and took control over many of these assets. So he still plays both sides of the fence, and still speaks out of both sides of his mouth. And I've never been convinced that he's not a key player in the top of this pyramid. But
well, there is that suspicion. Many people would say, well, is this, Russian-Chinese deal, the BRICS concept, is this just more of the Hegelian dialectic? Is Russia still under the influence of the Rothschilds and this sort of international banking system, or is Russia has Russia really separated? Is Putin really a nationalist and separate from that international octopus of finance?
Behind Putin's success so far in foiling the cabal is a team of think tanks inside Russia and think tanks in Iran and other nations opposed to the NWO. They take their job seriously in trying to resolve and counteract all the threats in a diplomatic way and stay within international law, and at the same time show some claws and teeth, because keep in mind they also like winning.
In June of 2015, Paris-based judge Javier Bermudez ruled that Baron Rothschild of the Rothschild Financial Services Group must face a trial for his crimes. That is, if they can find him in one of his many mansions scattered around France.
The leaders of India, China, South Africa, Brazil and Russia have launched a development bank with $50 billion in capital at the BRICS Group of Emerging Economies Summit in the Russian city of Ufa. The bank, which the BRICS countries see as an alternative to the World Bank, will have its capital expanded to $100 billion within the next couple of years. It will be based in Shanghai, China, and plans to issue its first loans, which are yet to be agreed, in April. At the signing ceremony, Russian President Vladimir Putin read a statement on behalf of all the BRICS leaders.
Подробно говорили о ситуации в мировой экономике.
We discussed in detail the situation in the global economy. We are concerned by market instability, high volatility of oil and commodity prices, accumulating of sovereign debt by a range of large countries. All these structural imbalances directly impact the growth dynamics of our economies.
If the market fundamentals then don't support these low prices, some are suggesting that this has been caused by energy warfare targeting Russia, Venezuela and Iran. Is this how you see it, and is this how many participants in Davos see it as well?
The price declines which we've seen over the last few months were also caused by heavy selling in the American future markets, and you could call that a form of economic warfare. And of course it's full-out economic war between US and Russia.
Putin's role was to follow Yeltsin's footsteps, as the Hegelian dialect was already played out in bringing the two nations, the US and Russia, together. But something terrible has gone wrong for the cabal and their world takeover. In the beginning, Vladimir Putin was playing a very complex multi-level game, just like a double agent, with some of the most insidious forces on the planet. He even accepted bribes and played the game of corruption until he turned the game against the cabal. Things have certainly changed in Russia. The Western worldwide media started the biggest lie and propaganda campaign against Putin and every country who opposes the new world order.
When the currency of the world's largest oil producer collapses like this, it is a very big deal. Russia's economy is facing a depression, not a mere recession, but a depression. This is all the result of the dramatic cut in the price of oil. It is Americans who bumped up the production of oil in North Dakota and Texas and elsewhere in America. They've put out all this extra oil, the prices declined sharply, and Putin is taking the heat because of it.
Решение о национализации этой библиотеки было принято советским правительством, первым советским правительством, и членами его являлись примерно на 80-85% евреи. Но они же, руководствуясь ложными идеологическими соображениями, шли тогда на аресты и репрессии. И иудеев, и православных, и представителей других конфессий, мусульман. Они всех гребли под одну гребенку. И вот эти идеологические шоры и ложные идеологические установки, они, слава богу, рухнули.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has warned Israel against supplying weapons to the Ukrainian government, which is battling a Russian-backed insurgency in its eastern regions. Putin's warning to Israel came just days after he lifted a ban on selling sophisticated anti-missile defense systems, which military experts say could be used to shield Iran's nuclear facilities from possible future airstrikes. The United States and Israel had lobbied Russia to block the S-300 system missile sale before it did so in 2010. Israel sees Iran's nuclear program as an existential threat and previously threatened to attack Iran if it is unhappy with an eventual deal. It is not clear what weapons Israel could provide Ukraine, but Israel has some of the most high-tech military hardware in the world.
I'm worried more about the ease with which decisions are being made to use force in international affairs nowadays. For example, it has become a steady trend in US policy. During Clinton's era, they bombed Yugoslavia and Belgrade. Bush invaded Afghanistan. Iraq was invaded under far-fetched false pretenses, liquidating an entire administration, including Saddam's children. And now it's Libya's turn. It opens with a pretext to defend civilians, but it's the civilians who die under the bombs during airstrikes. Where is the logic and conscience here? Both are absent. There are already victims among the civilians. What I want to say here is that we want and we plan to live in peace with everybody. We desire not to quarrel with anyone, and more so to be at war. But current developments in Libya confirm Russia's policy of building up its defenses is correct.
Syria has received its first batch of Russian anti-aircraft missiles, and that's what President Assad told the Hezbollah television network. The statement's adding fuel to the tensions over the S-300 air defense system, with the U.S. slamming Russia's actions and Israel signaling it would prevent it from becoming operational. RT's Paul Lear is following international escalation over Syria.
Moscow says that it will continue to supply air defense missiles, calling it a balance that is designed to deter foreign intervention inside Syria. The Russian Foreign Ministry says that it will restrain, this is to quote the ministry, some hotheads from escalating the conflict to the international scale. But the United States, as expected, has condemned the sale, while here in Israel, the Israelis are saying that they will act to prevent the S-300 missiles from becoming operational on Syrian soil. The Israeli Defense Minister Moshe Ayalon says that if the missiles reach Syria, and to quote him, Israel will know what to do.
President Obama struck back at Russia today for interfering with the presidential campaign. In America's strongest response yet to cyber hacking, the president is expelling 35 Russians accused of posing as diplomats. He's closing 2 Russian compounds believed to be used for spying. And he's sanctioning 4 of Russia's top military intelligence officers.
The president also declassifying intelligence on Russian cyber activity to help networks in the U.S. and abroad, quote, identify, detect, and disrupt Russian cyber attacks. In spite of this and the U.S. intelligence community's assessment that Russia ordered the election hacking, President-elect Trump just last night continued to dismiss both Moscow's involvement and the importance of the hacking at all.